Thank you very much. I will do my best to condense 3.5 years of thinking in the United Kingdom into 10 minutes. And I'm hoping I have some slides somewhere, otherwise you're going to have to imagine some of the very pretty pictures that I had drawn up. If you don't know who Ofcom are, we are the independent regulator for the United Kingdom's communications industries. We cover broadcasting, telecoms, we do content, carriage and competition. It is much easier to do some of these things if you only have one regulator. And hopefully, by talking about the United Kingdom, you might be able to draw some lessons for Greece. So I will go through this quite quickly. We use a lot of spectrum for analogue terrestrial television in the UK, 368 megahertz at the moment, but we could do all of that in just 40 megahertz after digital switchover. So there is an enormous potential digital dividend, except that the British government decided in 2003 that we would actually have more broadcasting as a consequence of digitisation, and so 2/3 of that spectrum will be kept for digital television after switchover. Nonetheless, we still have 112 megahertz left over, and that is the core of the United Kingdom's digital dividend. We've also managed to move some aeronautical radar out of the band, and radio astronomy will also cease in this band in the UK in 2012. So the total digital dividend in the UK is 128 megahertz, and the plan that you have there shows you in green the spectrum that will be cleared, in purple the spectrum retained for digital television, and in pink, right at the bottom, some spectrum that's used for wireless microphones. This is a peculiarity of the United Kingdom. It's very important. You've heard that from lots of people, so I will just say that as far as the UK is concerned, we think that that configuration of spectrum could have been worth somewhere between 6 and 11 billion euros to the United Kingdom alone. That's net present value over 20 years. It's purely economic value. It excludes any broader benefits to society, which we also anticipate could be significant. And of course, as you've heard before, we don't get to look at this spectrum very frequently. The last time was 1961. I hope you recognise at least one of the gentlemen at the bottom there. Don't look at everything on this slide. It serves a purpose, which is that we've heard about the possibilities to use the digital dividend for mobile broadband. We've heard about the possibilities of more digital television, standard and high definition, and we've heard about mobile television. But every single one of those other bullets was identified as a use of the digital dividend in the UK when we consulted on this in 2006. The point I want to make is there are many, many more potential uses of this spectrum than can use it. There are many more uses than we can possibly envisage today, and we think it would be a foolhardy regulator that decided to set the use of the digital dividend in 2009 and think that that would apply in 2026. So the approach that we've taken in the UK is very explicitly to maximise the value of this spectrum to society as a whole. Very, very explicitly, this is not about raising money for the government. So when I come on to auctions later, and yes, the British preference is to auction spectrum, we do not do it because the government wants more money out of us. The government gets the money, but that's a byproduct of the system that we think makes sure that spectrum ends up in the hands of those most likely to use it. So this is a market-led approach, very deliberately so. We want to put the minimum constraints on the use of this spectrum consistent with the international framework, Geneva 06 at the moment, within which this sits. And we think there are very clear benefits. You've heard them before. It enables the use of the spectrum to change as technologies and demand change. It gives new services the same chance to access this spectrum as incumbent users. And all of the experience in all of the spectrum auctions we've held in the UK is that they promote competition, they promote choice, and they lower prices. Fundamentally, we simply do not believe in picking winners, and we think that users themselves are best placed to decide how spectrum should be used. But having been very, very clever and been the first European country to identify the value of a digital dividend and what our digital dividend should be, we now find that other European countries are also identifying their dividends. France, the biggest and most significant, Eric will talk about developments in France after me. And this has given us a very difficult question. Should we carry on with the spectrum that we had identified, or should we stop, should we change it, and should we start again? And we have taken the painful but obvious, in some respects, decision that we should align the UK's dividend with what is happening in the rest of Europe. We think there are very large benefits to us doing so. So I've already said that this spectrum could be worth 6 to 11 billion euros to the UK. We think you could add at least another 3 billion euros to that value, and possibly more. And that's primarily because of the benefits of this spectrum for mobile broadband at lower cost. It's difficult in the UK, it's difficult in Greece, it's difficult in every country that wants to realise a digital dividend. For us, we've spent 4 years telling broadcasters that they would have channels 61 and 62 for digital TV. We're now telling them that they can't. For 4 years, we've been telling users of wireless microphones in the United Kingdom that they would have channel 69. Now we're telling them that they won't. So we have to find somewhere else to put very considerable users of this spectrum. We think it's only right that they not pay for it. So in moving these users, there will need to be funding available. I don't know whether Eric will talk about funding the release of the 800 megahertz band in France, but where you have an incumbent user, it seems only reasonable that they shouldn't pay to be evicted. We do not want to complicate digital switchover in the UK, which is taking a very, very long time, started last year and doesn't finish until 2012, and that is our absolute first priority to ensure that digital switchover happens, because without switchover there is no dividend. And of course we need to renegotiate with France, with Ireland and with a couple of other neighbouring countries, so that not only can they use the 800 megahertz band if they wish to, but so that we can as well. And so, if we do all of these things, and we're consulting on them at the moment, we will end up with, yes, the 800 megahertz band at channels 61 to 69, the same dividend that's emerging from Europe, but we will still also have a second dividend, lower in the band at channels 31 to 37, and it will be very interesting to see what becomes of that dividend. So, we still have lots to do. Considerable work in the UK to prepare this spectrum for release. Big, important discussions in the European Union about the nature, if any, of Commission proposals. Technical discussions in CEPT about least restrictive technical conditions. But we still think we can hold the auction for this spectrum in late 2010. It's a challenging timetable, but that's what we're aiming for. And that really does reflect the time to negotiate with France, with Ireland, and also the work that's happening in Europe. But then, and I just wanted to finish with this, we do think that the white spaces in the spectrum retained for digital TV, whether you call it interleaved, white spaces, still has a very important role to play here. And all of our thinking about the digital dividend has not only thought about the cleared spectrum, but also the interleaved spectrum as well. And that may be something that Greece wants to take into account at an early stage. We are auctioning some specific packages of that interleaved spectrum on a service and technology neutral basis, but in a way that we think is particularly suited for local television. We've already had our first digital dividend auction. I think that makes us the first country in Europe to have had an auction. It was for a package that covered Manchester. It sold for €11,000, so nobody is cutting taxes in the United Kingdom as a consequence. But we are starting to make this spectrum available, and we will have an auction covering the Cardiff area soon. I've heard wireless microphones mentioned in relation to Greece. We still need to worry about wireless microphones in the UK, and our solution is to create a private sector band manager, a spectrum manager, who will look after this spectrum to look after wireless microphone users. And what I haven't put here is that we are also consulting on allowing cognitive radio into our interleaved basis on an unlicensed basis, much as the Federal Communications Commission has in the United States. So, the world as it stands broadly in the UK is that we've always had 5 analogue TV stations, and we've had some other things hiding in the gaps, including digital TV. Sometime after 2012, we will have more than 40 standard definition digital terrestrial television channels. We will have 4 high-definition public service channels. We will continue to have wireless microphones sharing that spectrum. We hope that if anybody can ever build them, we will have cognitive access, cognitive radio working there, and on top of all of that, we will have a digital dividend that could be delivering mobile broadband, mobile TV, more digital television, new local television, or any combination of those uses. We have published hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages about this since 2005. If you do anything in Greece, don't spend as long looking at this as we have, and if you can learn anything from our experiences, I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.